Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, if you're watching this as it goes out, the 2025 24 Hours of Le Mans is just around the corner. If you're new to motorsport and don't know what that is, it just so happens to be one of motorsport's greatest challenges and most prestigious events, managing to draw drivers from all disciplines to take on the battle for glory. So, as you'd imagine, we've seen some of Formula One's finest talents give the endurance racing challenge a go over the years. However, whilst plenty of drivers have tried their hand at both F1 and Le Mans, only a few have been able to take victory at both. So, with the event not too far off, I thought it would be a nice change of pace to take a look at the F1 World Champions, who have also managed to conquer Le Mans in their motorsports career. First up is Mike Hawthorn. He made history when he became the first Formula One driver from the United Kingdom to win the World Drivers' Championship, an achievement that also made him the first driver in history to win both that title and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Hawthorn's victory at Le Mans came with Jaguar in 1955, but it was a race marred by tragedy. Less than 3 hours into the race, Hawthorn braked sharply in front of Lance Macklin's Austin Healey in order to reach the pit lane. When Macklin took evasive action, he drove into the path of Mercedes-Benz driver Pierre, whose car was launched into a crowd of spectators, killing over 80 people and injuring more than 120 more. It remains the greatest tragedy in motorsport history to this day, and it was the only time Hawthorn won the event. His F1 championship season came with Ferrari in 1958. It was a difficult season too for all, with 4 drivers, Luigi Musso, Stuart Lewis Evans, Peter Collins, and at the Indy 500 Pat O'Connor, all losing their lives throughout the year. Hawthorn was close friends with his teammate Collins, and his friend's death shook him into an early retirement, and tragically Hawthorn was killed in a road accident just 3 months later. Next up, it's Phil Hill. Now, the American racer is a fairly easy man to forget about. He was quiet, reserved, and often played second fiddle to the other drivers that Enzo Ferrari had signed to the Scuderia. Rather than guarantee Hill a Formula One seat, Ferrari insisted upon fielding him in countless sports car races for several years, including, yes, you guessed it, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Hill actually won the event 3 times, all with Ferrari, his first win coming in 1958, where he drove through horrifying conditions to become the first American-born driver to ever win the event, doing so alongside teammate Olivier Jean de Bienne. His second win came in 1961, and the third one came a year later in 1962. At the penultimate race of the 1961 Formula One season, Hill also won the World Drivers' Championship, albeit in horrible circumstances. He and his Ferrari teammate Wolfgang von Trips have been battling for the title all season long, and the Italian Grand Prix could decide the championship for one driver or the other. Tragically, at the end of lap 2, von Trips collided with Jim Clark's Lotus and lost control. His car crashed into a fence, killing both the driver and 15 spectators. As a result, and in those awful circumstances, Hill won the title that day, but the tragedy of von Trips' death meant that Ferrari abstained from entering Hill's home race in the final event of the season, the United States Grand Prix. Next up, it is a true Formula One icon, and that's almost certainly an understatement. Graham Hill is to date the only man to ever win the Triple Crown of Motorsport. That's the Indianapolis 500, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and either the Monaco Grand Prix or the F1 title, depending on how you personally define the Triple Crown. And yes, there is debate. Let me know down in the comments, how do you define the Triple Crown? Do you include the Monaco Grand Prix or the F1 title? With 5 victories at the Monte Carlo track, Hill also earned the nickname Mr. Monaco, and that 5-win record has only ever been matched by Michael Schumacher and beaten by Ayrton Senna. That is quite the incredible list of drivers. As most drivers did at the time, Hill regularly paired a full season of Formula One competition with some endurance racing, but it took several years for his F1 success to rub off at Le Mans. Hill took his first World Drivers' Championship title in 1962 with BRM, then followed it with another title with Team Lotus in 1968. However, endurance racing took longer for Hill to master. He competed in the 24 Hours of Le Mans 9 times between 1958 and 1966, bringing home a best finish of 2nd overall. He avoided the race for several years before returning in 1972 to take victory with French team Equipe Matra Sim Cachel, Catchy, and his French co-driver Henri Pescarolo. The penultimate driver on this list is Austrian driver Yoken Rint, who had a short but impressive racing career characterised by his prickly attitude and bold on-track manoeuvres. Though he first started in F1 back in 1964, Rint jumped between teams for several seasons before finally settling with Team Lotus. As a result, his victory at the Le Mans 24 Hours actually came before he had even won a Grand Prix, let alone an F1 world title. In 1965, Rint paired with the American racer Maston Gregory to race a Ferrari 250 LM fielded by the North American Racing Team. Interestingly, though, both Rint and Gregory were said to have approached the race with a negative attitude towards their car. Essentially, both were apparently simply waiting for it to break so they could collect their start money and go home. Love it. The car failed several times during the race, and at one point, Rint allegedly even changed back into civilian clothes expecting to return home, a rumour which led to the legend that NART team member Ed Hughes stood in for the missing Rint for a few hours during the night stage of the race. Now, it should be said that the official records do not credit him as a driver or a winner, but the ghost driver legend still lives on to this day. Back to the race though, and the car refused to give in with the Rint-Gregory duo, or, if you believe the rumours, the Rint-Gregory-Hughes trio, ending up taking the victory. Rint joined Team Lotus in Formula One beginning in 1969, but it was not a match made in heaven. Rint heavily criticised the unreliability of the Lotus machines, and team boss Colin Chapman had become notoriously unkind after Jim Clark's tragic death the year previously. The first year was difficult, but once the team introduced the Lotus 72C in mid-1970, Rint went on quite the run of form. He won the first 4 races the 72C entered, adding to his win at Monaco earlier in the season, and he became a strong title contender. Tragically, during qualifying for the 1970 Italian Grand Prix, Rint crashed hard at Parabolica and his car sandwiched itself between a joint in the crash barrier, and the impact forced Rint down into the cockpit where he suffered fatal injuries and was pronounced dead on his way to the hospital. Yoken Rint remains the only driver to have posthumously won the Formula One World Drivers' Championship title. And finally, while the bulk of Fernando Alonso's early racing years were dedicated to competing in Formula One, the Spanish driver did diversify as he grew older, taking on both endurance racing and the Indy 500. As I'm sure many of you will know and some will remember, Alonso secured back-to-back Drivers' Championship titles in 2005 and 2006, and at the time held the record for F1's youngest pole sitter, race winner, world champion, and double world champion. Not too shabby. The Spaniard won 7 of the 19 races in 2005 and only failed to make the podium 4 times. The following year, he won 6 of the first 9 races, finishing second at the other 3, before an FIA ban on Renault's tune mass damper allowed Michael Schumacher to chop down the lead. Alonso, though, did hang on and took the title by finishing second at the season finale in Brazil. Now, while Alonso did try out endurance racing back in 1999, it took until 2018 for him to secure his first victory at the Le Mans 24 Hours. That year, Alonso joined Toyota Gazoo racing drivers Sebastian Buemi and Kazuki Nakajima behind the wheel of the TS050 Hybrid LMP1, a car that had already been tearing it up in the World Endurance Championship that season. The Spaniard demonstrated his skill, speed, and experience to take full advantage of the machinery he had been given to take first place, and not just in 2018, but in 2019 as well. That is it for this one then, but are you a fan of the 24 Hours of Le Mans? If so, let me know some of your favourite stories from over the years down in the comments, and who do you think will come out on top in 2025, and explain why it's Stoffel Vandoorne. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the Le Mans and F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.